Hi, I'm Jennifer Sir. Welcome to the Sewing Room. Today kicks off our first episode in our Business of Fashion series, and we're interviewing Autumn Adamme from Dark Garden Corsetry. Autumn became known as the godmother of modern corsetry after launching Dark Garden in 1989, reviving corsets for a modern body and audience. Growing up in the Renaissance Faire circuit, Autumn made her first corset at 13. Shortly after reaching the age of majority, she turned the crafting of custom corsets and historical ensembles into the groundbreaking business, which established many of the techniques and standards observed by corset makers across the world today. I hope you enjoy this interview, and I'm so excited to learn more about Dark Garden and the business of fashion. Welcome to the Sewing Room, Autumn. It's so nice to have you here today.
It's lovely to be here.
Can you tell us a little bit about Dark Garden and your journey to where you are today?
Absolutely. It's been a long journey. I started the company in 1989. I was 18 at the time, and I believed that I would be making historical costumes. That was the original direction that I was going in, because I grew up at Renaissance Faire, so was really inspired by the costumes there. I went to City College and College of Alameda to study fashion history and fashion design, garment construction, pattern drafting, etc. And then just dove in. I was working at fabric stores at the time, and I also worked at Wilson's House of Suede and Leather, and got a sense of what it was like to work in the corporate world, and determined not to do that. And it just seems to be my kind of who I am. If I'm interested in a thing, then I make a business out of it, even though I'm not a particularly strong business person. So, yeah.
Well, that certainly is not apparent on the outside. I think you're probably a much better business person than you think you are. Um, Speaking of business, you have many employees at Dark Garden. And did you start off with employees? Did you start off with a team, or did you just start off you doing it all yourself?
I started with a business partner. So in 1989, I had a housemate named Karen, and she saw kind of where I was going and my interests. And she said, I think that you should have a business, and I will help you get the paperwork together to do that. And but I was doing the majority of the actual sewing, etc. myself. Um, we parted ways pretty quickly, just because life kind of blew us our separate directions. And then probably a year or two later, I met a friend who was also had just finished fashion school, and I had more work than I could handle myself, so I kind of hired her to work with me. And eventually we decided to become business partners, and we worked together for a while, and then again life kind of blew us separate directions, and I moved to San Francisco, and moved in with my friend Monique Motil, who became another business partner, and we worked together. And that's when we started working together. That's when we started really focusing on corsetry and growing the company. We actually had a formal partnership agreement, because we had some really good advice from someone. And we worked together for about 5 years. And in that time, our business doubled every year.
That's
And
huge.
yeah. And in that time, we also moved into the location that I'm in now. And we went from just the two of us, Monique and I, doing the design, drafting, and sewing. Very quickly, we hired a friend, and then I think we had about probably 6 or 7 employees pretty quickly. And by employee, I mean private contractor.
Mhm. There's a big difference between having an employee and a private contractor.
Huge, absolutely. And then eventually became legitimate. So now I'm up to, with the 2 locations, I think we're still at 19. And as you probably know, in the state of California, the 20th point employee is kind of the shift from very small business to small business, and a lot of regulations change.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that. I'm still a
Yeah.
very small business.
Well, it's not a bad idea to stay a very small business. Yeah, the costs change dramatically when you go from below 20 to 20 or more.
Wow. Wow. I know that, yeah, I just hired my first employee last year and I've been trying to, because we have some seasonal employees, trying
Mhm.
to stay around 2 like employees
Mhm.
because the employee taxes, they are something totally like I had no idea. When you have a contractor, you don't pay those, you just pay them directly.
Yes, yes.
So
Yes, absolutely. But as you may or may not know, and definitely people watching this should know this. I'm sorry, I'm getting whatever. um, so again, state of California is very concerned about um, garment trade and sewing. Well, basically worried about workers being taken advantage of. So places that are doing any kind of manufacturing have a closer eye on them than a lot of different types of businesses do.
right.
So it's a lot like recently contractors, there are more and more strict guidelines about who's a contractor and who isn't, but garment trade specifically is getting even more attention than a lot of other fields. Again, because there are some real abuses going on. So it's all meant with the best of intentions, but it can be kind of hard on a smaller business.
Absolutely. And did you have to get your manufacturing license as well?
Hmm.
Yeah, that's a whole different process too. I'm very curious about that, but we won't go into that now. We can talk about
Yes.
more higher level things today. But yeah, um, but it's really great that you are actually manufacturing in San Francisco. I mean, that's a huge achievement, actually, to
Hmm.
be able to hire people and have them work in San Francisco without outsourcing it to a different country or a different state. That's amazing.
Hmm.
Or even a different city. So,
Right.
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 Yeah.
Yeah. And part of that is absolutely thanks to SF Made
Oh,
because of their efforts. And we've been a member of SF Made from almost from the start of their inception. And their focus is on keeping manufacturing alive in San Francisco and supporting businesses that want to do that. So we've gotten a lot of coaching from them along the way. A lot of getting through the last 3 years, we wouldn't have been able. I don't think we would have been able to do without their guidance and assistance.
that's good to know. I'm so happy they were there for you because the last few
Mhm.
years have been rough on a lot of businesses.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so I have a question about your offering. So I
Mhm.
went through your amazing website, which is beautiful, so beautiful. And I saw that you have different levels. Like, so you have ready to wear, you have a few dresses that are ready to wear. Then you have some off the rack, I think, ready to wear corsets.
Mhm.
And then you have made to order corsets,
Yes.
which I'm guessing are still a little bit made to measure as well. Am I right about that? Or is it
Sort
just,
of, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of the way that I describe it. So as you said, we've got and I'll just talk about corsets first. So we've got ready to wear, made to order, bespoke. When I started the company, fully bespoke, there was nothing made to me, nothing ready to wear. I felt very much that bodies were just too individual to do ready to wear. And it wasn't until probably 4 years in, and I was doing all of the pattern drafting and was referring to my existing clients to inform every new pattern that I made. And I started seeing that really there were some averages of bodies. And so, based on the averages of those bodies, I was able to develop our first ready to wear style, which was our cincher, which we still offer. And very gradually from the cincher, then we went into the sweetheart style, and then the corselet, which is like a petite little cincher. And then many years later, we were making corsets for a crew in Mardi Gras in New Orleans, Mardi Gras crew in New Orleans. And so I was fitting like about 20 women a weekend.
Wow.
And like in this, like seeing this many people, I started seeing doing the same pattern adjustments for a lot of people. So we then developed another overbust style that we call the Valentine. So it's a like fuller busted, fuller hipped version of the sweetheart with one more pattern piece. So a little more subtlety of shape. And kind of to answer what you were asking about, is it made to measure? We're starting with the size samples of our ready to wear and then doing pattern adjustments where necessary.
Okay.
And sometimes those include, just make it a little bit higher, or take the hips in a little bit, or adjust for somebody's asymmetry, or any number of things. But once we're past 3 changes, we highly recommend the bespoke process, which is going from measurements and then involves kind of as many mock-ups as it takes to get there.
Right. You must have great systems and management skills to manage all of these different parts of your business. You have, yeah.
I have an amazing team, and one of my team members, Marianne Faulkner, she's our creative director, is phenomenal with systems. And we have been developing new systems along the way. One of my past employees named Kristen, she understood workflow better than the rest of us did, and helped us refine a lot of things, including the signature offerings of our ready to wear, because before that you could get any of our corset styles in any of our fabrics basically the same price, and other than just like the cost of the fabric itself being different.
Mhm.
And she helped us determine what the signature fabrics were, and those could be one price, and then special order fabrics would be another price, because it really does cost a lot more to do. I need to find the thread, and do you want this bone encasing with that fabric, and all of keeping track of all of these different things, as opposed to black satin, red satin, ivory satin.
Right. And then
Yeah.
with your store in New Orleans,
Mhm,
you still take bespoke orders from New Orleans?
mhm.
You do.
We take bespoke orders from there, but they're entirely produced in San Francisco.
Really producing something.
So my team there is trained in measurement taking, and one of the things we've been doing for ages is distance remote fittings.
Okay.
And now we can do it by Zoom or Skype, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So much easier than originally back in the day when we started the company. and we had clients, kind of around the world. We would send the mock-up off, and then they would take some photos with their film camera,
Right. And then
get
send
those photos developed, send them back along with the mock-up. And sometimes I would discover that it had been put on upside down, or any number of things. So now I'm able to walk people through the actual lacing up process of the mock-up and guide them, have their assistant be my eyes and hands, as it were.
That's amazing.
It's technology has just done so much for being able to do things with people that we may never see in person.
Right. As owner and CEO of your business,
Mhm.
how much hands-on creative time do you get as opposed to like working on the business?
It is entirely variable. I don't get as much creative time as I would like. Um, Hands-on kind of depends if we're sort of over committed. I don't usually sew. Generally, my role is as business owner and visionary, and then Marianne does initial bespoke patterns, and I do either one of us will do the fittings, and then I do the pattern changes, the fine tuning of the patterns. And then, if we're in crunch time, then I'll do garment sewing, because as you mentioned, we do bespoke gowns as well. So last month we had, I think, about 5 gowns kind of all due at the same time. Normally we wouldn't let that happen, but because we've got the last 2.5 years of events happening right now,
Right.
a lot of things kind of just happened all at once.
Mhm.
And as far as working on the business, that's in some ways a new thing for me. I feel like I've, for most of my life, just responded or reacted. Um, my great regret is that I didn't spend more time learning about business and business planning. And, on my 3rd decade in business, I'm finally doing that and looking ahead and contemplating where I want to be in the future, and finally learning to make a game plan for that. And I would say that that is absolutely still a work in progress, that I'm learning how to make those plans and follow through.
And
Um,
do you work with a coach, or is that something you're doing with SF Made?
um, the I am working with a coach now, and I'm really, really liking her system.
Mhm.
It's called Work Strong. And but before that, we started working with the guidelines in Traction, which is a business management system, I would say. So there's a book called Traction and a book called Rocket Fuel.
It sounds familiar.
Yeah, I highly recommend them, and probably reading through them several times before you leap.
Leap or implement or yeah.
Yes, exactly so. And we're also really learning to make the most of the many different platforms that are available to us now. We're finally really getting close to making the most of Asana, which is a project management software. And yeah.
Um, okay. So my next question is about marketing.
Yes.
Marketing is it's huge when you have a business. Dark Garden has a significant presence on social media. I always see your posts. I always love them. They're
Oh,
so
good.
good. Yeah. And you have a terrific word of mouth following. Do you have
Mhm.
someone who helps with your marketing, or is it all done in-house?
Marketing is like It's almost like a hydra these days, right? Because marketing involves social media, and there's always a new platform to keep track of and be involved in.
Mhm.
Um, about 5 years ago, I would say one of my employees at the time, she was in production, but she had worked for the Vuitton group
Mhm.
in customer service, and she just had an eye for what was going on social media, and she helped us shift our Instagram and Facebook approach from being very slapdash and whoever was working in the boutique and had a few minutes to spare, to her actually plotting out what a campaign was going to look like, and what our overall look was going to be and what our hashtags would always be, and setting into place editing systems, so we knew that not only we didn't have a bunch of typos, but also that the fact checking was right. And it's great to have a second set of eyes on work, no matter how practiced you are. That has turned into a team of us. 5 of us meet every Tuesday. I have a full-time person who lives in New York, actually, and she does a lot of our writing and all of our Instagram posting.
Wow.
Um, Corinne, our store manager in San Francisco, a few years ago, saw the potential of TikTok, but we weren't at that time ready to buy in. So she actually just did her own TikTok and gained an incredible following, and kind of was the proof of concept, I
Mhm.
guess. And then last year we were lucky enough to work with Facebook. They provide interns. So we give them work experience, and then we get some of their time, basically. And this particular Facebook intern said, Facebook is great, but y'all need to be on TikTok.
Yes, the TikTok conundrum.
Yes. And then she and my store manager in New Orleans started working together, because she was going to school in New Orleans. And together they really built up our page and our following. And now Annabelle in New Orleans and Corinne in San Francisco, they both have a hand in it. Corinne still has her personal one, and the collaborations that she puts together, and then she helps us with Dark Garden collaborations. And Annabelle also was just always contemplating different angles and paying attention to what's going on, because again, it's just constantly changing. In addition to that, we have I think it's called GoDaddy Social now, and they are involved with our Facebook approach, and also AdSense, which is involved with our Google AdWords, et cetera, et cetera. So in short, we spend probably, I mean, do we want to say this? How much we spend a month on marketing
Well,
for free advertising?
right, yeah.
Thousands of dollars on free advertising.
And how much time also, I mean, that's a huge amount of time,
Yeah,
huge amount.
exactly. Huge amount of time. Yeah. Yeah, Chloe in New York, she's full time. And then the rest of them are like, I'm not sure how many hours a week Annabelle and Corinne are putting into it, but I think it varies between 5 and 10 hours a week,
Mhm.
maybe more. You just never know, because they're of course working that into the rest of their responsibilities
Right.
of running a store, taking care of clients, shipping things out, answering the phone, doing fittings.
Yeah,
So
they've got big responsibilities too, don't they?
very, yeah, as well as the shopping for the boutiques and like the list goes on. So with a small business, everybody's wearing too many hats. We're really working on getting that more refined because um, when you've got too many hats, there's a lot of juggling and everybody feels always like they're on the verge of dropping something. And sometimes we do drop things and then either we notice it's dropped or somebody else notices it's dropped.
Right. Right.
So yeah.
um, so this is a long question, so I'm going to actually read it because it's too. I realize I can't just try to improvise this question, but
Okay.
the photography on your website and social media is epic, and you're a fantastic model, by the way. You really are. You're
Thank
so
you very
beautiful,
much.
and you're
Thank
very
you.
photogenic. And actually, all of the models on your website are portrayed with such beauty in all different shapes, sizes, and genders,
Mhm.
and kinks, which I think is super cool. It's lovely to see a business person in the fashion industry so inclusive in their field. Do you have any advice or clues as to how you manage this diversity of sizes and shapes? I mean, it sounds like it's probably part of just your ethos in general.
It is. Yeah. I mean, our vision statement is supporting uncommon beauty.
I love that.
And the uncommon is the that beauty is everywhere. It is in every human. And size, shape, etc., 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 etc. Like none of that matters. Everyone has beauty to them. And my personal ethos is to support that um, physically and emotionally.
That's wonderful.
So, um, and as far as being intentional about it, it's very intentional. It is part of our ethos, and there are two answers to it. So when I was working with Monique, I'm 5'3". Monique is 6'3".
Oh, wow.
So already we had kind of an understanding that bodies are really different. And when Monique and I sit down, we look like we're the same height because our body types are also very, very different. Like my height is in my body, her height is in her legs. And I think because we were both coming from these like outside the norm, um, it it wasn't even conscious that we were including as many people as we could. Additionally, we were living in the Castro in the early 90s, and our friends were very, very diverse. And so our very first fashion show was already included several different skin shades and heights and genders and the just the whole gamut. And it wasn't conscious. It was just these are our people. And then over the years may have lost track of that a little bit. And then as Marianne's role grew and grew and grew, she said, we really need to stay focused on diversity. Like we are looking pretty white. Let's make sure that that's not all we are.
Right.
And so whenever we're casting, we're making sure that we've got some diversity. And including right now, I'm like, and let's not forget the petite blondes.
And how much of you, this is just sort of a personal question because, you know, how much of your audience are people over the age of 50?
A lot.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
wonderful.
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And a piece of that is because like I'm over 50, like that's our world. And so I'm thinking about like I'm coming from what would I want to see? How do I want to feel? Like the corset styles that we're creating have been because I'm very aware of what makes me feel good in clothing and what makes me feel not good in clothing. So I assume that I'm not alone in any of that.
Absolutely. And then I believe I read maybe in one of your social media posts that you were recognized by the city of San Francisco as a legacy business.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
So that we've been in San Francisco some of the time, just Bay Area, but since 1989, and the process included like a lot of just record keeping, like where was the business at what year, what were the addresses, and also what is our involvement with the community, what makes us important to San Francisco, um, because a lot of people like, I couldn't count how many people have said, oh well, you are a mainstay in San Francisco. Like, no pun intended, of course, corsetry puns notwithstanding, um, but because the business grew up in San Francisco, I think we're very, very San Franciscan. It is not the only place we can have a business, but it is for sure the right place to be.
Yeah, it seems like the perfect place, really.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
lastly, do you have any advice or words of encouragement for designers who are just starting out?
I have so many that I've been working on a book about
Oh my
it.
goodness, that's exciting. That's really exciting.
um, but usually when I'm asked specifically this question, um, I I suggest that people really learn about their time management abilities. And now that I'm understanding that a little bit better, it's really about finding the system that works for you.
Mhm.
And record keeping, like as you are developing your craft, keep track of how long things take you, because it is never the amount of time that you think it's going to.
Never.
Never. Never. Yes, if I sat down to sew this pair of pants, it would take me from this time to this time. If everything went perfectly and I was 100% focused, and, you know, the thread never broke and the needle stays sharp and all of the things, but that's not the real world. So, um, really, really learning the reality of how long things take, and and just record keeping about that until you are able to estimate time appropriately, um, and learning to value your time is huge. I remember very well, like I still struggle with charging appropriately for our work, and it's especially hard because we're doing something that a lot of people are able to do in their living room. Like, they're not doing it as a business that involves many people. So because of that, we've got all of these regulations and fees and, insurance this and insurance that and workers comp.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
um, so
Mhm.
so when someone says, well, why does it cost that much? Like, well, it costs this much because, quality takes time. And also, our government has all of these things in place so that people are taken care of. And that costs money,
Yeah.
um, which is, it's important anyway. Um, but fashion, sewing, this tends to be more or less women's work. So, and we have a history of not valuing ourselves and our time
Very
that
true.
highly.
Mhm.
And also, the world has a history of not valuing our skills and our time very much. So that's a struggle. Um, there's a long list of books that I would recommend reading. One is Know Your Worth. Um, Big Magic, I think, is incredibly important for people to read, by Elizabeth Gilbert.
Mhm.
And then something like traction or another time management course like that, or
Great.
business management, I should say.
So when is your book coming out?
Don't know yet. I was going gangbusters when uh, I like had an idea of what the scope was, and then um, kind of came to the realization that I was in no place to be giving advice.
Mm.
Like all I had was don'ts.
Then you have to go back and work on the do's, right?
Exactly. Exactly. So I've been in that process and getting this training via WorkStrong, and so soon I'll have more dues and have a much better understanding of how to really give any kind of advice, um, and then we'll get back to work on it. But I think, yeah, another guideline is know why you're doing what you're doing,
Mhm. No,
because that needs to be your guiding force for everything you do, and learning what is your work and what is work that other people want you to do,
mhm.
because a lot of people end up believing that they want to be sewing for people because they enjoy sewing, and other people see that and then want a piece of that, and sometimes it is the right decision to keep doing it for yourself.
Yes, I came to that decision a long time ago that I like to do it for myself and I like to teach people how to do
How
it.
to do it for themselves.
But I'm kind of done with doing it for other people. So
Yeah, it really can take the love and the joy out of it. Um, I'm sure you get asked all the time if you make all of your clothes.
I do.
And yes, and you do make more of your own clothes, I
I,
would say, than I do.
yeah, I make about 90% of what I wear. And I
What a
purchase
dream.
and I try to purchase the things I try to purchase secondhand or through consignment or some way that's more ethically sustainable. It's just super important to me.
Yeah.
There's super important to me. Yeah. So yeah, I make a lot of my clothes, and it's been part of my marketing strategy also for my
Of
business.
course. Of
So
course.
yeah, so that's been great. Um, and now I'm learning more about what I need to do for my business and to
Mhm.
grow it or to maintain it. Um, and what learning more about my why as well.
Right. Is it Simon Sinek, Know Your Why? Is that the
Yes,
so good.
yeah.
So good.
So
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
I'm also listening to a book right now called The Pumpkin Plan by Mike
Yes.
McAllowitz, which is
Yes.
yes, which is a really great. He's really funny. I listen to everything on Audible because that's
Mhm.
how I absorb things better, and
Right.
I can do it while I'm sewing. Um,
Precisely.
yeah, and he also wrote a book called Profit First, which I found incredibly helpful in
Mhm.
my business.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
that book actually turned like understanding my money turned my business around just completely. So having it all allocated into those like envelopes every month, certain part goes
Mhm.
into profit, certain part goes into paying me, a certain part goes for taxes, then for the business, and then there's other things too. Like there's like the slush fund for the business, the slush
Mhm.
fund for yourself. So yeah, so
Yeah.
that's what I found super important.
Sounds like I need to read that one.
That one's great. That one's really great.
Yeah.
And he's really funny because he likens it to these really um, simple ideas. And the whole idea there was like in the olden days when we just had cash, we didn't have an ATM card. Maybe your mom had all these envelopes that she had money in for that month. And you had the envelope for groceries and you had the envelope for rent and you had the envelope for these other things and you didn't spend beyond what was in the envelopes,
Right.
you know? So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And Yeah, now with these cards, we just like go and go and go, and it's so theoretical,
Hmm.
so theoretical. And I think it's probably like I'm seeing like the generation behind us with Venmo. It's just like even more ephemeral.
Yeah. Yeah, let me just Venmo it to you. I'm not a fan of the Venmo personally. I found it too difficult. It wasn't easy enough.
Good old cash.
Cash, yeah, cash goes a long way. Or it doesn't. But anyway.
Right, right. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Autumn, for coming on today and talking to us about all these really important parts of business.
Yeah. I would say the other one is when you start to I mean, I would be nowhere without the people that have worked with me over the years. I'd still just be sewing in my living room, I'm sure. So choose wisely.
Yeah.
Like as an employer, that's been my thing. Like not only do they have the skills, but are they somebody that is going to fit for me and is going to fit for the rest of the team? Because we spend so much time at work. If we don't enjoy being there, and that can be ruined by one person,
Hmm.
then it's
Absolutely.
terrible for everyone. So yeah, just bring on the good ones.
On the good ones and nurture the good ones too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Thank you so much, Jennifer. Thanks for the opportunity to speak with you.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Autumn. Have a great day.
You too. Bye
Okay.
bye.